I'm going to call this meeting to order. And first, going to introduce board members. Judd, you want to introduce yourself online, please?
Sure. Judd Markowski, Bridport resident and LIB member.
Thank you. Tricia?
Tricia Allen, ACSD rep.
Thank you, Tricia. Kim Farnham, I'm the member at large from the Mount Abraham School District and obviously the chairperson, but I'm from New Haven. Wendy? Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Wendy
Robin.
Pratt, Assistant Director at the Hannaford Career Center.
Dan Rosignol, horse, and from Northwest Addison at large.
Sharon?
Yes, please.
I'm Sharon Meacham. I'm new, and I live in Middlebury.
She's just been appointed, so we're legal.
I'm Nicole McDavish, the Superintendent Director.
I'm Rebecca Goulet, Business Manager at the Hannaford Career Center.
Nick Colston from Shoreham, representing ACSD.
Steve Orzik, Middlebury resident, representing ACSD and vice chair.
Thank you.
Linda Barrett, clerk.
William Biederman, Middlebury, member.
Thank you. Linda, I want to congratulate you and your acceptance into the Middlebury Hall of Fame, am I correct?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well deserved. Very, very well deserved. And a nice article in the paper, and I was like, wow, she does a lot of things. But anyway, but well deserved. Nice to hear. That all your efforts are appreciated. And then Sharon Meacham, you've met. She works up at the hospital, and I've known her for a while, and had the opportunity to sit on a couple of steps on her way up the ladder, I guess is the word for it. But anyway, I'm very, very happy that she wants to continue and help that relationship with the hospital. It's very important to us, if you haven't heard. Okay. So the consent agenda.
Yes.
Excuse me. Sure. I'm sure you have some names, but anyway. So Linda's going to take notes as you give your name as guests. So that will be helpful for her. All right. Go ahead.
Dave Cole from Weybridge.
Thank you, Dave.
David Roberts from Brandon.
Thank you, Dave.
Alan Pulsifer from Chittenden.
Joy Verplank, Ripton.
What's up with that? Anyway. So the consent agenda, Nicole and I have talked about it a little bit, and we're going to go through it. If anybody has an issue with each item, then we'll pull it out of consent agenda and do one vote at the end from that point on. So any questions about the minutes from September 21st?
Kim, I think you've missed a couple on the very beginning.
Agenda.
Public comment on the agenda?
We
You wanted to go ahead and vote on that?
I
Okay.
don't have a motion.
Sorry, I'm like way ahead here. Yeah, and it's not the medication from any. But anyway, all right, so can I approve the agenda as written in front of us? And motion?
I'll move to do that, but may I point out that aren't we supposed to appoint? I don't know that the introduction was enough.
She has been sworn in.
Oh, she has been,
Yes,
okay.
she has been sworn in. And that was one of the legal pieces that we had to do.
Right. So I want to make sure I done.
So are you
I
making
second
the
the
motion?
Well, I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, Bill. All those in favor of approving the agenda as written in front of us? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, that is approved. Public comment on the agenda in front of us. Is anybody here to have a comment regarding any of the items on the agenda? Okay, thank you. So correspondence, there's been some donations. I don't know who wants to talk, Karen or Nicole?
So last month we had a donation for 10 computers from Middlebury College. Those are the ones that had been inspected, and Dan Callahan has gone through the other 10 that we have received, and right now 8 of them are useful to us. So we're asking the board to accept the 8 iMac computers. One computer was not offerable at all, and that was recycled. And one we're waiting to get access from Middlebury College. There's still a password lock on it. So we'd be looking to have the board accept 8 additional computers at this time.
Okay, so how many are still being
There's
Check.
only one left that
Okay, thank you.
may come through.
Okay. All right. Any other correspondence from anyone? Nicole, Benny? That you're aware of?
Do we have the cars on this one?
The first was the last one.
No, we don't.
Okay, thank you. So back to what I jumped ahead on, in the consent agenda, the minutes are September 21st. Any questions, additions, omissions? Okay. Seeing none. Policy 2.3 was financial condition and activity monitoring. You want to address that?
Sure, this is just
Thank you.
one of the monitoring reports that we do on a quarterly basis. And it basically just asks if we're aware of any violations of any of the policies that we currently have. Here, we also let the board know about the line of credit, how much we've drawn for that. And we talks about the investment policy and then when the audit's gonna be. Just to keep the board informed of that.
Okay. No other crisis management issues?
Not today,
Thank you.
not financially anyway.
Yeah, always. So in next, on our list here, the new hires, which there are 3 sitting in our audience, and Alan, go ahead,
Just on the
financial.
financial, number 3, third heading, provide less for the board prerogatives.
That's talking about if we need additional funding or major expenditures that haven't in the budget that we're doing. It's kind of letting the board know if we've done anything.
Okay, over the investment policy.
Right.
Okay. I don't know if that wording can carry forward from prior
A
year.
lot of it has been.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Any questions online? I think that's a no. Anyway, so the 3 hires, like I said, are with us. Alan, you can stand. Getting great reviews.
Well, Alan Pulsifer, I've been in the maintenance position for 11 years at the Career Center, and as of October 1st, supervisor of facilities.
Thank you.
Happy to step into that role and learning a lot already.
It's been a great transition.
Enjoy? I mean, we have everything on paper, but.
Well, then I'll simply say, I'm new to the community, new Bridgeton resident, maybe the newest Bridgeton resident, actually. And I have a lot to learn, and I'll try and do it as fast as I can.
Thank you, Joy. And David, a returning member.
Yes,
Thank you.
Most of you know I was adult ed, assistant director of adult ed for a little while. Glad to be back, glad to help with the grants and get those going. And it's a great opportunity for the community and the Career Center, so I'm glad to be back and getting help.
Thank you for adding your expertise.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from me?
I would just like to say that we have been waiting a long time to be able to hire Joy. We really held out. We interviewed, I think this was our 8th round. And we waited and we got the best. So we are thrilled. And I couldn't be happier to have Alan fleeted up to his new supervisory role. The staff is thrilled, we're thrilled. Some wonderful addition to the family. And I am so grateful. You have no idea how grateful I am that David has agreed to come back and help us with the grants. It was one of the pieces that we were was just a little bit out of reach while we were starting up the school year, and he has both the expertise and the heart for this place. So I just couldn't be more thrilled.
I had the experience of working with Alan during the contract negotiations for staff. And so it's nice to have somebody with us at the table, literally. Any other questions from any of the new members? Thank you for coming to the meeting, by the way. Monthly accounts payable. I'm going to assume that Nick has some numbers for us.
I don't know if I do.
What?
I saw the lady on my left.
I'm on your left, and yes, I do.
Yeah, Linda has them, but.
Oh, there they are.
but-
Yes, I did have-
I was a little bit.
I did have them, yeah. So general fund, $248,703. Payroll for September 1st and September 15th was and September 29th, 3 of them. $312,291. Adult education, $4,900. Enterprise revolving, $17,583. Student activities, $2,531. Birth, $19,400. And then the big one is energy project, $1,085,000 for a total of $2,455,895, which is the highest number I've seen in about 8 years. We really did it.
We did. We did it, that's for sure.
Any questions?
And there's not much left
Not much left to do.
for the energy project.
There's about $650,000 in retainage and additional fees that we have to pay.
Yeah.
Any other questions regarding those numbers? The donations we already discussed. I don't believe there's any additional ones. Okay, next on the list. And then reports to the board, which should be in the packet if you have any questions on specific parts of those reports. Policy will have a little time later to go over some of their action items. But seeing none, I'm going to ask for a motion for the consent agenda from a board member. Dan, second.
Second.
Thank you, Steve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so discussion on CTE governance decision at the state level from the EPA study. Nicole, you want to talk about that? Or?
So I had sent the study itself to each of you, and then also did some notes about the study. This is the one where there were the 11 recommendations, about 8 of which were around money and funding and assets, and then 2 of which were around governance and structure. And my concern, and I just want to continue to bring it forward, is that one of the recommendations is about changing the governance of CTE in the state of Vermont. So currently we have a couple different ways it's done. We're one way, right, a regional technical school district, and I think there are now 5 of us in the state of Vermont, where we have an elected board who oversees us. We are an independent entity, and we share students between sending districts. The most of the CTEs are actually a center attached to a district or attached to a supervisory union, so they're just one entity within that. They don't have a separate elected board, they don't have a separate agreement or funding structure. They don't have the authority to levy bonds or anything like that. Then there are also some private entities, which is kind of another hybrid, where we have private schools that have public CTE, and I don't really understand it, but it's different than us too. There are essentially 2 different ways, well, 3 things that they're proposing perhaps doing through this, well, it's not proposing, recommending to stakeholder groups, and AOE is part of this, which is our governing structure, Department of Ed. Either leave alone, right, or break us into regions, or have one CTE district for the whole state of Vermont, where it's not actually described, but it seems like one either elected or appointed or hired person at the top, and then all of the CTE centers are serve under that person. And then there would be some different structure for governance without locally elected boards probably, and some different structure for budget, probably not having the authority to levy for bonds. And so my concern is, obviously, I think that this structure, I'm kind of biased, but I think that the structure is really good for us, and I would hate to lose the authority and autonomy that we have in this structure. I certainly understand most of the CT, the vast majority of the CT centers do not have this structure though, that they are in a district for which they're competing for everything. They're competing for maintenance, they're competing for supplies, they're competing for budget, they're competing for salary. It's a highly competitive environment, and they often felt like they're losing out, right? They're not getting what they need because other priorities come first. So I get their concern, totally understand. And so I just want, because this isn't, if this starts moving forward, it has governance implications. So I want the board to be aware of what's happening, so that should you be in a room, especially those of you who are going to the board meeting at the end of this month, you have the information at your fingertips so that you can be advocates. I keep thinking that this would be a really big change, so it seems like it would be super slow to happen if it was to happen at all. But I will tell you that in the last 8 weeks, I have been in 6 meetings now. Today was another meeting where I was in for 2 hours about this particular thing. So I don't know if, I cannot tell if it's a real thing or if people are just talking or what's really happening. AOE has been in all of these meetings though. I will tell you that Ruth is generally in the meeting. And I do know that the Vermont Principals Association and the Vermont Superintendents Association and VACTED, which is the similar thing for CTE, VACTED wrote a position paper on this. So there's certainly a lot of discussion. And mostly I just want you to be informed, because obviously I would hope that we would be advocating for what I think is a really great structure. Instead of removing the 4 or 5 that are working to make it better for everybody else, I would like to find a solution where we didn't lose what I think is the best structure in order to become part of a large conglomerate, essentially.
Nicole,
Yeah.
is part of this being pushed because of the financial issues they're having at the state college level? And it's kind of saying, well, maybe we can save some money down here.
They don't seem to be connected.
Okay.
I've never heard that even referenced in any of the meetings. It's mostly driven by, I think that there is a good intent at the big state level that CT is important. And I think they're hearing very loud and clear from a lot of CTE centers that they're not able to get what they need. We don't happen to be in that position.
Dick, so I really hate to bring this up in a public session, and I really don't want to be seen dropping names, but I had a long conversation with Peter Conlon, who was the chair of the Ed Committee in the House. He said that he is aware of it. He's been aware of it for a long time because it changes both governance and finances, that it would have to be coupled with legislation. Therefore, it's not going to go anywhere just on the say of the AOE. It has to come through the government. And he said that it is not on the docket this year for the Education Committee, which it would obviously have to go through first. And it doesn't look good for the next cycle, which is, as you know, a 2-year cycle. So it may happen, but he is very aware of it. He is also, Peter served for a long time on the ACSD board. He is very cognizant of what happens here at Hannaford and very supportive of us. And he assured me that if there are ever hearings on this, that it would be very clear that it's going to happen, and we would have an opportunity to have a voice at the table. So I hear what you're saying, that there is a big push for it because there are many people who are the redheaded stepchild in their district, and that is unfortunate. But we are not in that position, and Peter understands that. So that support on the House side, at least, for us to, if nothing else, have a carve out and say that these districts that are already established and working probably don't need to be changed, or the change would be, it would certainly have our input into that. So yes, I believe that you are hearing a lot about it, and he said that there is a lot of noise about it, but he said it is not going anywhere until there's legislation to change that, and that legislation would have to come through his committee. So he's very supportive of us doing what we're doing here because we do it very well.
Any other questions? From a historical perspective, approximately 20 years ago, I was approached by a woman who was head of our special ed at Mount Airy at the time, Diane Treadway. And she said, I'd like you to come to a meeting, she said, because there's a conversation to take this institution and pull it away from Middlebury, which at the time controlled this particular part of the district. And we were still sending schools and so on, but anyway. So I have seen the transition that took place, and it's gone very smoothly. That's where it started from, and it was broken off from that. Obviously, part of the physical building is also a piece, but we do a good job, and that's obviously reflected with AOE and a few other people around the state and the faculty and so on. So that's where that all started. Again, I'm going to say at least 20 years ago, but maybe even more. I was trying to think, but anyway, and had an opportunity to work with all the directors worked with. So that's where we're at regarding this history of this building. But anytime you hear anything, it's really important, just bring it back to the board and whole in particular about those conversations, because sometimes she might be the last person to hear them. Dan?
Yes, if I may ask, as a devil's advocate, is there any reason that that this school can't be used as an example, or are there drawbacks to our system? Does it cost the system more? I mean, the overall system, is it more expensive, or is it less efficient for them to consider changing it? You don't change what doesn't work, is my model. So if there are any advantages or disadvantages, maybe we could discuss them in advance to basically saying this is a good prototype, why don't you do this? Instead of saying, let's collapse everything else in a big hole. That we don't know if it'll work. So I'm just asking if there's anything that you see, why would they want to change this?
So the problem with our model is the demographics. Some of these districts are pretty far flung and low population. If you look at most school districts across Vermont, very low populations. So they don't have the critical mass to be able to do what we do and draw people in. And we are, right now, we're kind of in a holding pattern as far as enrollment goes here. But as far as I know, all of the descending school districts are losing students. Demographically, they are shrinking. So, we may at some point be in that situation, but there are districts that are tiny compared to our sending districts. And they, in order to take advantage of a central location, they would have to ship their kids really far away. And so that doesn't work. It's a good model for the situation that we're in right now. But statewide, that's kind of one of the reasons they're looking at this, because they're pretty strapped. And those districts are shrinking rapidly, and if they're trying to keep their doors open, it's even harder for them to keep a CTE open.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
And just to add, there are 11, I read this, there are 11 little CTE under high school or close to high school. So we have 5 with autonomy. So, the little ones, there are a lot of them. So they're obviously worried. But
Yeah, I just have never seen I have never once in 25 years seen a structure of finances change where there aren't winners and losers.
Right.
So, and to answer part of your question, Dan, yes, it is more expensive for a student to come here than it is to be at the sending school. And that is always a factor for a variety of reasons, the cost of the equipment, all of those factors.
and that's acknowledged in the report.
Right. Any other questions? Thank you, Nicole, for that information. Next item is purchase a new vehicle.
This is just an information item for you to have knowledge about. We aren't currently acting on this at all. But we have, as you know, we have a big bus, a short bus, and 2 vans. I think that's our fleet that we use kids.
3 small buses.
That we use for kids. The big bus is over 20 years old, the little buses are the same, and the 2 vans have over 150,000 miles on them. One of the vans just died, we're not sure if we're gonna be able to get it running again, and the other one is probably gonna, I would not feel comfortable sending kids over the mountain, for example, in either of those vans. So we are going to need to address our transportation fleet, either piecemeal or through a bond. And so you'll hear more about that coming, but I just need you to have that awareness as we're moving forward.
I mentioned to Rebecca briefly, just maybe possibly approaching some of the local dealerships and seeing in regards to, whether or not there's, a grant donation process that they would get from, Ford or GM, wherever they are, to see if that's something that would work. But, Dan?
Is there anything available in the IRA, Biden's energy efficiency, if you want electric?
I don't know, that's a good question, we haven't really
There seems to
gotten
be a
into
good
that
bit of
yet.
money that they're
We'll
trying to
certainly look at
spend. There's a person at VCAN you might contact. I've worked with VCAN. I could send you their contact.
That'd be
There's
great.
facilitators
Yeah.
that are very good at telling you yes or no.
Yeah, if we could send that information, I'd be happy to do some research on it.
Sure.
Thank you, Dan.
Go down an electric bus.
There you go.
That would be distinctive.
Next item is enrollment by programs.
At a previous meeting, somebody had asked, I can't remember who, but, so this is our current enrollment. Well, it was the current enrollment when Patrice put this packet together last week. And I will tell you that it is remarkable that we actually have a few more students this year than we had last year, even though all of our sending schools are down enrollment. We did do a full court press this fall to bring students in to ensure that students that were facing barriers were helped. Wendy is personally responsible for 10 to 15 of these students. So we worked really hard on these enrollment numbers and are very happy to see that's 303 head count. And we will know what that FTE turns into after we get our calculations, because students that are in the full day program obviously are 1 point FTE. If they're in the half day program, they're 0.5, and then our technical students are something less than 0.5. We're still working on that. But it'll be something like 150 FTE by the time we're all done.
Any questions about those numbers?
Just one quick observation. The individual programs, that's nice to see. Would there be a way to see how that correlates to either faculty or program? Do you understand what I mean?
Not quite, go ahead.
Okay, so, for example, ART has 4 sections.
Okay.
And I know that's 16 students in total, all Eric St. John.
Right.
Does automotive technology have anything to do with diesel technology?
Okay, so break them
Is
into.
engineering and architecture, is that a standalone, and there's only 4 students, and that teacher only has 4 students?
Correct.
Yeah, that's the overview that would be helpful to me anyway. What programs are in danger, I mean, really frankly, and what programs are really pretty solid at this point. Would be helpful to me anyway.
Right, and I can tell you just off the top of my head, our engineering and architecture program only has 4 students. Although I will tell you that Katie is very intentionally doing recruiting and putting together materials for recruitment. Also, our manufacturing program only has 4 students in
I
it.
think so.
And that is a critical need in all of Addison County. So we're all going to be working on that. So those are the 2 that come to mind. Most of the other programs where you see a small number, it's because there are 2 groups of kids in one class. But I will bring it back as by program and teacher. That would probably be more helpful for you.
Thank you.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
that would be good.
Mhm.
And for new board members, if you're hearing jargon that you're going, what other
Sorry, yeah.
Anyway, feel free to ask, call Nicole, whatever. She'll be happy to interpret. We all know it's a learning curve here. Anyway, so a timeline presentation of the budget.
Yes,
Did
so
you,
I can, it's linked here, and if you want us to bring it up, or people just want to look at it on their own. So this presentation was given to the staff on October 4th at a professional development afternoon, and it was actually really well received, I think, and I think people appreciate the transparency of it. We kind of started out, we just wanted our staff and faculty to know, like, where is the money really at? Most of it's salary and benefits. So there's not a lot of wiggle room for other things. So we did this pie chart just to kind of give an overview so people understood what we were talking about. As you can see, the benefits and salaries, they're like at 70% right there. So, and then the other big number is the debt service, which has increased a lot this year because of the new bond we had. All the other numbers are pretty marginal. What we've done and implemented this year is each department or instructor was given a copy of their budget with several years of history. They've been asked to do a proposed fiscal year 25 budget, and they're meeting with Nicole, Wendy, and I for conversations. We're also asking them to give us a feel for what might they need in the next 5 years, because we know we haven't really been keeping up with some of the stuff along the way, and we want to get a good feel for that as well.
And the critical thing to always point out on that pie chart is that 86% of our budget is non-negotiable: salary, benefit, debt service. So the only thing we have to work with is everything else, which is mostly, when you look at them, are things that are also non-negotiable, like lights and power. So we don't, our actual wiggle room budget is very tiny.
So one of the things that we're doing a little differently this year is, and I think it will help with Steve's question from earlier, is currently the way the budget's been done in the past, all the teaching salaries go under a general number, which makes it really difficult for me to be able to quickly say, this is what it costs to run this program. So we will be putting the salaries and benefits in the program, but we will be rolling it up when we give a public presentation, just because just one person in each one many times. But it'll help us, be able to find a break-even factor with some of these programs too, by doing it that way. So I'm excited to introduce that, and hopefully that'll be helpful to the board. And then the last slide here is just kind of what the schedule is. So right now we're in the budget meeting times with all the teachers. We're going to wrap that up around the 25th. I'm asking for all the final numbers and completed workbooks by the 26th of October. And then, I'll spend some time compiling all the information. And then the admin team will meet and talk about it and have our input and see where we're at. We'll give the faculty and staff an update on the 14th, and we'll present the first draft to this board on the 17th. Throughout December, we will expect that we'll have additional conversations both at the board level and the budget committee level. And we'll take our road show around the county. We have been requested by Addison Northwest to come to their December 11th meeting. So Nicole and I will do a presentation for that, and we'll work with the other districts to get the information out. In January, the board will be asked to accept a final budget so that we can prepare the annual report and get the warnings out. We'll hold the annual meeting, and March 5th will be town meeting day.
any questions?
Pretty good.
This is the most formal presentation I have seen at this table in 15 years. Thank you.
I hope it's not too formal.
No, but I think, it's helpful when the staff knows this is how we do it,
We've had some really good conversations.
That's good.
I think that's really helpful.
Thank you for doing that. And I just, I'm going to take a minute here. Rebecca was here during most of the summer while all of these renovations were going on, and, working with a variety of people here and quietly doing her job. And I just want to thank you publicly for doing all that, because I know how many hours you put in, and it was a lot.
Thank you. I was happy to be part of it. I do like the construction part of it, but it was a lot going on all at once.
But thank you.
It went well, hopefully.
And on that note, the next item we have on our list here is a suggestion of what names to put on a plaque regarding the renovations. And I decided to bring it back to the board, only because we, you know, when you're looking at that kind of plaque, do we take a look at the board members that were here when we set up the bond? Obviously, there are some new board members that are just coming on now and, you know, see the results of the bond. But we have some people that have left the board that I really feel is really important to recognize.
Yeah.
You know, I feel very, very strongly about that. Missy Beckwith, Suzanne Buck, who was the chairman at the time,
Yeah.
and Dr. Tiffany Love is also a board member at that point. And if there's anybody that I'm leaving off, please let me know. But I felt it was really important to recognize those former board members. Anybody else that we can think of? I mean, I don't have a problem with doing current board members and then adding these additional names, if that's something we can do. I don't know how people feel about that. Yeah?
I am so current, so new, that I wonder if I should be on this. I'm not part of this whole setup. I do get to read the benefits.
You're innocent.
So if we have any issues, we'll just give them
But
your
you'll be
number.
around
Okay,
paying
don't
for the
mind.
bond.
Yeah.
You'll be there paying for the bond.
Similarly to Dan, this is Tricia.
Okay.
I don't feel as though my name needs to be on the plaque.
Okay, your decision?
Yes, I do not need to be on it.
All right, thank you. Judd? He's eating dinner, I hope. Anyway,
I agree, I don't think my name needs to be.
okay, all right. Any other input from anybody?
I know I'm not the one.
Sorry, I was locked out of my phone. I couldn't type. I have cold fingers. Yeah, no, I'm happy with all those plaque decisions. Thank you.
Linda?
I'm not a board member, but I'm wondering if John Curler should also be included. I wasn't able to look at the picture you had sent, so, I mean, he was instrumental in getting it going, for sure.
Again, I think we were looking more at board members, Linda. I think that was the conversation that I got right from the get-go is the board members that were instrumental. I mean, we could, if we did that, I
There's a
can
lot
see
more names.
you and I, you know, I mean, I can see a whole bunch of other people within the building that, you know, would be part of that. Thank you. Thanks for mentioning that. Anyway, so we're pretty much in consensus with who would not want to be on the board list, but I think those other three names.
So I'm understanding that Dan and Tricia will come off and we'll put on Missy
And Sharon.
and Sharon,
Okay,
and we'll put on Missy, Tiffany, and Suzanne.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, out of respect for their efforts, you know, at the beginning.
I think you're gonna need a motion for that.
Probably be a good idea. You take a motion from a board member? Don't be shy now. Bill? Bill's got his finger up. Okay, and a second? Nick? Thank you. All those in favor of that current list that Rebecca just mentioned?
I
Steve?
mean, as part of the motion, it should.
Yeah, we should really
Specify.
mention
The names.
Yeah, so, because I want to be clear about who we have on and who we don't have on, because I was a little trouble following what was going on there.
So we have some new board members who have individually requested they not be included in that list, okay? And we have three members that were not obviously at the table during the completion. So we're looking at Dr. Tiffany Love, Missy Beckwith, Suzanne Buck, and then current board members that would like to be included is Nick Carson, Steve Warzik, William Bitterman, Kim Farnham, and Judd McCoskey. Anybody that I missed?
Christina,
Thank you.
How about Steve?
Steve Rooney.
Steve Rooney, thank you. The people that aren't here, thank you. Okay,
Okay,
all righty.
that really should be in the motion. Thank you.
Yes, you got all those. Okay. All those in favor of that motion? Questioning? Aye. Against the motion? Anybody? Thank you, motion is passed. And thank you for adding those other two names who obviously were here during that process. Okay. So we have the second reading of the following policies. For tobacco prohibition, the transportation, Title I compliancy, class size, and then travel reimbursements. Any questions regarding any of those policies?
And did everyone get, the links here are strike-through policies that Christina went through and did by hand, because the SBA doesn't do that. And the reason there's not a strike-through one for the transportation one, it is a new policy. So it was not, nothing was being corrected, we were adopting a new policy, so. And hopefully everybody had a chance to look at those and read them.
So, Steve, maybe you could take a minute with the new members here in regards to when we have policy changes, how that works.
Yeah, so the way the policy committee works is that we are on a modified policy governance model. So the only way that we really do things as a board is through policies. The VSBA, which is our support or our professional group, they have lawyers on staff that go through, and as legislation comes out, they write policies that are in compliance with that. Sometimes legislation changes what needs to be in a policy. And for example, we recently had one about fire drills and evacuation that the legislature required us to change our policy. So the policy committee's job is to go in and keep up on that and make sure that policies are in compliance with the law. The other thing is that, and those are required policies, meaning that there is some sort of legislation that requires you to have a policy related to that. The other set of policies, recommended policies, and those are things that cover areas that there is no law around, but that it's a good idea to have a policy around it. For example, there is no law that says that the community can or can't use public facilities here, but we are a public institution, and therefore we are looking at adopting a policy that covers how that happens. It's policy guidance. It is not the procedures that are followed at the school. That's done by the administration. They create those procedures, but they have to have the policy backing because they are carrying out the will of the board. And so last year, the policy situation was a little awkward, and so people weren't sure what it was about that, so we ended up sunsetting all the policies and adopting whole cloth. I can't remember how many it was pretty large.
Was it 36?
It was 30, yeah, it was 30-some policies. Normally, you're gonna get them in smaller batches like this, and even this is a large batch. So you might see one or two policies when things change, but it is, as a new board member, and this is from experience as well. When I was a new board member, I read those policies when they came out because it really is helpful to figure out how the board runs and what kind of things that you should be interested in. Sometimes boards get bogged down in, there'll be something like, what color is the carpet in the library? And that's not really, if we're operating efficiently, that's not what we should be doing. That's an administrative job. They're the ones that run the facility, and they're the ones that keep, that keep the educational program on track. What we do is mostly oversight, and we do most of that through policy. So there are other interesting things like community engagement, which is important, but policy really is the heart of what the board does. And so by reading through those policies and understanding what's going on with them, it gives you a better understanding of both what your role is on the board and the kind of things that we do when we look at education policy. There's a great webinar that the SBA does if you're interested to go ahead and do that. And as a push, we're looking for another person on the policy. So just no pressure here, but it would be nice. Right now we have an even number, which is awkward because a quorum only exists when you have 51% at meetings. Yeah. So anyway, as far as policies go, these are pretty. I wouldn't say light, but they are understandable.
Yeah.
And you're able to go through them. Maybe the Title I is a little awkward. The one that's coming up, the one about use, that's a little more complicated.
So Steve, what kind of action do you need from the board?
This is second reading. That means that we would have to have a vote to adopt these policies as updated. So, with the last meeting, we had first reading, and in that case, it's just been presented to the board, it's been presented to the public. And now, second reading means that any discussion or objections to policies would be aired right now before we adopt them, but the hope is that they get adopted at this meeting.
Entertain a motion to adopt these policies as listed. Cindy, would you like me to name them off again?
As long as you have them.
I have them in
She's gonna.
Then I will move that we adopt policies D7, C3, D4, D6, and F1 as referenced in minutes and emails.
A second, please.
I second it.
Thank you, Dan. All those in favor of adopting these policies per listen? Aye. Okay. Anybody against any of the policies or have concerns? Seeing none, motion passes. So the next item is in response to the Teachers Union, which is the ACEA Association, has indicated they're ready to negotiate, and we will respond in letting them know that we've received the letter, which we kind of already did anyway, but just let you know. The only question I had, and Steve Rooney's not here this evening, about the makeup of the negotiation board itself. I don't think we put that in final numbers of who would be interested in doing that. We have people who did it before, but there may be some new additions or people who would like to go off. Judd, I don't know how you feel about your presence on that group.
I'm happy to do it again, although I would love it if somebody else would chair that.
Okay, thank you. So, and we will talk to Steve Rooney. I also sat on that with Suzanne, so, excuse me, if there's anybody else who would like to learn or involve themselves in negotiations, it'd be really helpful to have at least 3 people on there. Because if somebody can't make it, it allows the negotiations to continue and not have to be rescheduled. So please give some thought to that. And I think the next meeting we'll definitely have to make a decision. So please keep that in mind if you are interested in involving yourself with that. It would be grand. We need a motion to respond to them regarding the fact that we are also ready to negotiate. I have a motion, please.
Who's our
Bill? Made the motion. Second? And Nick will second it. All those in favor of acknowledging the response to begin negotiations with the Teachers Association? All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Thank you. Informational agenda. There's an open house, November 9th, from 4:30 to 6:30. And there's also, I think at the time, we just had a brief discussion about maybe cutting the ribbon and opening up the new edition, and people are going to want to tour around and see that piece, and it's an opportunity for us to do that.
So I'm on the committee for the open house this fall. I'm working with EEI and a couple of the instructors. So EEI will have a plaque, hopefully it'll be done in time. They have offered to bring a live ribbon and scissors if we want to do that. They are planning to set up in the lobby with some before and after pictures and be able to answer questions if people have them. And they've also offered to sponsor refreshments for the evening.
Yay, food. And any thoughts on how this is going to be advertised? Because I think, that alone might be a piece that, John Flowers we can talk to. Or just to kind of let them to come in too also and see before and after pictures, maybe.
And I think, if we're gonna do the ribbon cutting, like if we could know who from the board could be here at what time so that we could actually schedule the time, so people won't be tied down for the 2 hours, and it may be better to do it maybe at, early, like maybe at 5 o'clock or something, to the board. if you wanna let me know, I can make sure that that's all.
Did
in
you want to
place.
do 5 or 4 even?
So there's a policy and
So you'll be in the building?
we'll be in the building, but we would probably be available to 5. And I think the official start time is 4:30.
Mhm.
Correct.
Mhm.
So you're going to have people in the building if you
Yeah.
schedule it after 4:30.
Hmm.
I certainly don't want to miss the ribbon cutting, so
Yeah.
maybe we could have a shorter meeting or do it at 5.
It's totally up to the board. Eric and I are fine either way. They offered, and I wanted to present
Sure.
the offer to you folks, and whatever your pleasure is, we can set it up to happen at whatever time if whoever wants to participate.
Mm-hmm.
I believe we've already started putting information out to the community about 4:30 though.
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
But we have a little bit of control of the policy, we will be out at 4:30 for sure.
Oh, yes.
So do we want to do it at 4:30?
Sure.
At the beginning?
That makes
Wanna
sense.
Get that ready? Okay.
I think with people coming in, you know.
Great, we'll get that set up then.
So public comment, we can open that right now. If anybody has anything different than the posted agenda, and if the speaker has a statement they would like he or she to read, or any other comments from the audience right now, guys.
I would just like to ask if I could excuse myself.
By all means, and thanks for coming.
Have a good evening.
Dave, would you like to speak to the group? No? Thank you. Okay, so policy 4.1 is basically kind of a way for us to have a little feedback and how we're doing as a board today. And I apologize for early on, kind of just skipping ahead. Anyway, but who would like to address the group in regards to how we did, or I did?
I'll take a shot at it.
Thank you, Steve.
I think that it was nice to have all the supporting documentation available to us beforehand. It was nice to have these packets. So that made it, I think, go quite quickly. And to even have the policies here available for our use. We stayed ahead of schedule, and the discussions were relevant and seemed to be pretty cogent and organized. So it was nice. I thought it was efficient, and that is always that's something I often judge meetings by, is did we get our business done, and did we do it without a lot of extra talking, I guess. So I was pleased.
Thank you.
So on that comment, can I cut in and say something that's slightly off topic? I think, Steve, you're planning on going next week?
Yes,
Is that
I am.
correct? And I am. And I'd love some guidance, who are the people we should be talking to? Whose ears should we, hear or whisper into? And what else we might want to do from people who have been there before,
Mm-hmm.
stuff that Nicole might want to know. And I'm happy to meet with somebody next week before we go, if that would work. But I'd like a little bit of help before I go, because, I'll go and I'll keep my eyes and ears open.
Right.
But if there are some other things that I can do and some other people I can talk to, that would be more helpful.
So some of the people that we met during our, I'm trying to think, the Great Flood evening.
Oh, the ladies from the SBA?
Yes, will be there, and they're a great group. I'm just very impressed with the changes they've made, and asking all sorts of different questions.
And they'll never forget us after the flood.
No.
It's a good, they'll remember us immediately. But anyway, former educators, really accessible for just about any type of question, whether you're a new board member or a seasoned board member. The agenda I looked at really quickly, and they're going to have some guest speakers from what I understand during that time slot. But any questions you have about the VSBA and, what supporting pieces can they offer? I mean, they do have all the training modules and all of those things that they offer, or podcasts, whatever you want to call them. And they may even have some new ones that you'll be aware of more than us. Support pieces, I've found them to be incredibly helpful. Not that I needed them as far as being the chairperson, but anytime there's a legal issue, or I'm also on the health commission, and we hear from them during that time, and especially reports on legislation. And I think that would probably be part of your presentation. Any new things coming down the pipeline, I'm sure.
And I assume there'll be some members of the legislature there.
Never assume. You might, you never know. You never know, but I think, they normally send somebody over there pretty much anytime there's stuff going on, whether it's committees or whatever, so they're on top of it as much as possible. And I think that's the other part. And then you'll meet other board members from the surrounding sending districts, which is also another piece. If you haven't gone to the regional meetings, Mark Koenig will be there, I think Suzanne will probably be there, at least for part of the sessions, that do county-oriented things. The resolutions, that's the only piece that I personally went through those, and there's recommendations on how to vote, and I totally leave it in those hands, only because they've done the research and the write-ups and all those things in regards to what the resolutions and the history of where they came from and so on. If that answers your question. Okay. Yes.
And I think there are three things that you, and I'd be happy to meet with you. Just for the edification of the board, there are three big things for that group. One is the impacts that the VTS, the Vermont State University closing programs, is going to have on us specifically. Our ability to do fast forward credits, cross-crediting for kids during college credits here. And that should be an area of advocacy for the school boards. The governance structure, anybody you can bend an ear on the governance structure, because I think that more people think it's I think the field thinks that most people are in favor of the governance structure change, and that is not the case. And then the healthcare issues. We understand every year that healthcare goes up, but that is going to be a critical factor of our negotiation, and the school boards should be giving you all information about that.
So the actual local
Yeah.
contracts, you do not touch healthcare. It's a totally separate piece on that group. We will be doing in the spring. Mark Koenig is our chairperson, so you'll be hearing from him. And I can just tell you, and I had it verified at a hospital board meeting last week with the president of the hospital, UVM. There was a move afoot, and we got a hold of a letter from a healthcare advocate from this area that Blue Cross Blue Shield, who obviously the teachers fall under for insurance, was looking at partnering in the state of Michigan popped up.
Yep.
So I asked flat out Mr. Sonny if he heard anything, and he said, "Oh yeah." In other words, in every other comment I've had from people is it's kind of a done deal. And to make the pool bigger, obviously, there were some questions that we had as a group with the commission is, okay, so who votes what? And how many votes do we have versus Michigan's? So those are going to be the pieces that are going to have to be worked out, obviously. And again, we haven't had a meeting. We will have one next week. We meet monthly to try and talk about these type of things that are coming on down the pike. But anyway, does it help us? I'll let you know. But somebody thinks it's a good idea. I just think it's kind of interesting that nobody in New England has approached us, that it came from Michigan. So, and we'll see if there's any particular details. Up
We
until
did
now.
talk about that at the business manager meeting.
Yeah.
And I asked the question of Bobby
Sure.
Gonzalez. And it was confirmed, and they didn't have a lot of information for us yet.
No, he didn't either.
The other thing that we talked about was the rising cost of healthcare, just to give board a kind of a feel. Last year, the premiums went up 12%, and while they haven't announced what their proposed rates are, they have said it'll be higher than it was last year.
You know, in the struggle that we have with that particular commission is the voting powers are equal. There are no odd voting powers. We've gone to arbitration twice, for obvious reasons. And so it's hard for us to really feel absolutely committed to this whole process when in fact some things are already done. And it makes it tough to get in there. But in the backing of the NEA, which is an important piece of the pie that would naturally take place. I totally understand that. Anyway, so that will be, hopefully this spring, we'll start our rounds.
The school just had to turn in all their data by the 15th. They
Okay,
asked every
thank you.
district for, we didn't list teachers' names, you use identifying numbers, but, who was in your district, what their salary was, what plan they took, there's quite a comprehensive ask, and it was sent all to a consultant that it could be working with.
Right, well, that we've hired to do that. But yeah, and there's a lot of little pieces to it. For instance, if you have two employees work in separate districts, or if they move into a district, how does that work? And, my learning curve has increased tremendously in the last 3 years for that. But anyway, and it's also, it's also evolving a lot with the insurance, all this with Visbit and so on, as they hear things along the way and so on. But we'll let you know when we know more. Well, thank you, Rebecca, for adding that. Okay, so on that note, I need a motion to go into executive session under the guise of personnel, and that is VSA 313, A1, and VSA 313A3. You have that motion?
So moved.
Steve and Bill. Bill and Steve, whatever you'd like to do. And we will go into, I think, dinner first.